to Truth or Politics. I'm your host, Darlene Price, and tonight we have a very controversial topic, and this is also our 11-year anniversary show. We've been on the air for 11 years. Can you believe 11 years? Michael Mann behind the scenes. And before we get started on this topic, we want to thank everybody, all of our supporters, everybody on Facebook, everybody on NBR TV, everybody behind the scenes, and Truth or Politics in Pulaski County and Louisville. We want to thank everybody for staying with us and hanging with us for 11 years. It does not seem, Steve Hall, does it seem like 11 years? Can you believe it? No, it's flown by, man. And we want to especially thank NBR TV and Steve Hall, our hero, who's kept us on the air through some real controversial stuff. He's even falsely arrested once and everything else. So it's been a trip. It's been an 11-year trip.
First and only time.
We've been threatened to be sued how many times? And of course, nobody's ever actually sued us because we are accurate in our reporting. So, but anyways, we want to thank everybody for 11 years.
Share it on Facebook if they're watching.
Yeah, and if you're watching, good point. I'm our guest here. We're going to introduce him here in a minute. And if you're watching, please click share on Facebook and share this. We are live. And before we get started, this is a call-in show. But please hold off on your calls for about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, and we'll tell you when to call. The number to call is 606-376-5000. That's local, 606-376-5000. And long distance is 372-0002, 372-0002. But hold off on the calls. I want to read a couple things first. First off, we posted this today, or I did, as kind of a bolo. And in the post, it's got a picture of two burglars with their mask on. I don't know if you can zoom in on that or whatever. Facebook people can see. Facebook. The little burglars. See that? I don't know. Can you zoom in on that? It's just a picture of two burglars, okay? And this is what they're saying. And we posted this because during the holidays, burglaries are usually on the rise. And this is the burglars talking, okay? Dear social media users, we just want to thank those of you to make our job easier. Thank you for keeping us informed of when you are going to be gone from home by posting that you are at the doctor's office, visiting Dollywood, posting photos of your food at a restaurant, and of course when you are posting the photos of your vacation to Florida real time. We may be criminals, but we're not stupid. We know how to monitor social media and know when your house is empty. We also know that if you're in the hospital or visiting someone who is in for a procedure, you'll be there for a while, long enough for us to break into your vehicle and pull up your GPS and press home for your home address. Then we can steal presents and anything else you have in your vehicle worth stealing and head for your house. So, from the burglars, have a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and a Happy New Year, and keep those social media posts coming. And we posted that because a lot of you, we love you out there, but you post way too much. Well, we're going to be in Dollywood all day. And you post your whole family there so they know that you're not home. So keep that in mind about that. Okay. Today's case that we're going to talk about is the Kyle Rittenhouse. And we're going to do a little prequel to that. And then we're going to do we're going to show you something to keep in mind when you're talking about the video of this case. For those of you who don't know about the Kyle Rittenhouse case, you must have been living under a rock. But Kyle Rittenhouse was the 18-year-old who fatally shot two people. What? He was 17? It says 18 on thing. Okay. 17 or 18 years. That's right, because he was a minor when this happened. Okay. He was 18 when he went to trial. That's the difference. But he was 17-year-old. He was a minor. Who, when this happened, he fatally shot two people during the riots last year in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He was subsequently acquitted of all charges in a criminal trial that divided the nation over questions about gun rights, violence at protest, and self-defense. The verdict followed a highly watched trial in which prosecutors presented an extremely weak case and could not overcome Rittenhouse's claim that he acted in self-defense on the night of the shootings. Jurors deliberated for roughly 27 hours over the course of 4 days before pronouncing Rittenhouse not guilty of all 5 counts. First degree, and the 5 counts were first degree And it's real important that you listen to this, what the counts were, okay? And we're going to get into this a little bit later. The counts that he was charged with was first-degree intentional homicide, first-degree reckless homicide, first-degree attempted intentional homicide, and 2 counts of first-degree reckless endangerment. The jury was also asked to consider lesser versions of several counts, but were not swayed. So all the counts, even the 5 main counts, and then the what's called lesser included counts, which were kind of like assault counts and battery, that type of thing, he was found innocent of all of that. And part of the reason was the videos. And before we get into the actual juxt of the case and you start calling them, we're going to do a little demonstration. Oh, let me introduce, I'm very proud to introduce my son, Ian Lawler. I asked him here tonight because most of you are regularly, if you're new, thank you for coming, but just a real quick down and dirty for the new people. I'm a prior law enforcement person. I have 20 years of combined military, police, and federal agency, mostly doing narcotics work. But
I have none of that. I'm a veteran.
I know, but he is very well trained. Tell them he was a Navy corpsman, but he was assigned to a combat Marine unit, and tell them all the training and stuff that you've had as a combat Marine.
All Marine Corps, all Marines are riflemen. All Marines have the ability to be infantrymen. I served with 1st Battalion 6th Marines and 1st Battalion 7th Marines. Yeah, we do a lot of extensive weapons training, field operations, things like that. I had the opportunity to go to combat hunter school and a few other cool training opportunities where you get to learn more about I think things that would benefit law enforcement personnel, such as like the psychology behind unnatural grooming movements, things like that when you're dealing with a possible assailant. But I do want to caveat before we dive into this, I'm not one of those people who does not believe that there needs to be police reform. I understand that there are lots of bullies with badges, way more than we like to admit there are. I also understand that there are very, very good law enforcement officers who do a fantastic job, but are absolutely terrified to step out from behind the thin blue wall of silence, and that needs to change.
Okay, but you also have special training. You went to Colorado in armed confrontation, okay?
Yeah, martial blade concepts.
Okay, and he's also, he's skipping over something really important. He's also a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and runs a gym in Somerset. So he has a lot of training on self-defense, okay? So we want to show you a demonstration. This first demonstration is going to be, we're going to pretend that he's sitting in a vehicle and I'm the police officer walking up addressing the vehicle. The reason we want to show you this is later on we want you to juxtapose in your mind can you hold off on the calls? Let me go ahead and answer this one real quick. Truth or politics, what's your comment or question?
I just thought I made a comment on TV. I've got the video but no audio.
No audio at all on TV.
Where's he at?
Well, it's staticky and we just barely can't hear it.
Okay, all right. And you're in Parker's Lake?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, caller, for telling us that. Okay, thank you. Call back later. Okay, hold off on the regular calls, though. Are you?
Well, he's going to be running the camera, so go ahead and talk some to him. Oh, you're already back out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Audio's perfect.
Okay, all right. So what we're going to do is, you got your gun. Okay. We want to juxtapose that you don't drop a weapon on the floor.
Negligent discharge.
There you go. Okay, first show our weapons that they are not real, okay? Because, recently the movie star that, okay. What we want to show you is how trained police officers and trained military are trained to react in a certain shoot, don't shoot situation. Because the psychology behind this is this. Anytime, even if I have the drop on somebody, if they're acting and I'm reacting, even if I got the drop on them, they're going to outshoot me. Now keep that in mind on these demonstrations when you're talking about a 17-year-old and what he was going through and the incredible restraint he showed and how law enforcement is trained differently and some military, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is, hopefully, can everybody hear me? I'll talk loud. Okay, he's sitting in a vehicle. I'm the law enforcement person. Here's my handcuffs for tonight. So you know I'm law enforcement. Okay, so I come up to the vehicle and I'm like, sir, roll your window down, roll your window down.
How are you doing today?
Sir, and for some reason, I'm leery of him, so I've got the drop on him. Sir, I need you to put your hands up and step out of the car right now, sir.
Okay,
Put
no
your hands
problem.
up. Okay. Now, I knew he was going to do this, and he still, if you notice the click, he out-clicks me. He out-shoots me, because he's acting. When you're reacting, your body has to hit that signal first and then react. 100% of the time, anytime you're in a shooting situation like that, you will always, the actor will shoot quicker than the reactor, even though I've got the drop on him. Okay, try one more time. Just try it. Let's see if I can outshoot him. Okay, sir, step out of the car and put your hands up, sir.
Oh, crap.
Yeah, okay, okay, one more time, sir. Step out of the car. Come on, sir. Put your hands up. And see, and I knew it, and I'm really trying to outshoot him, but he's going to do it every time. Okay. Now, show us the one that you were talking about earlier about.
Oh, well, I tell you what. I'm not going to tell you what it is. That way
Okay.
you don't understand. I'm going to have you sit down right here.
Okay.
I'm going to put my chair in front of the table.
Okay. Am I the cop or what? Am I?
Yep, you're the cop. Your job is to shoot me as soon as you see the gun.
Okay. And I got the drop on him.
This is a test that I saw not too long ago. It was actually one of the cops that trains at my gym that showed me this video on YouTube, and it was kind of showing you how harsh or how difficult it is to make split-second decisions under duress, especially in a hostile situation where there's a life or death element to the prize. So don't fire until you see the gun.
Okay.
All right, because that's what the public demands from cops. Until you see a gun pointed at you, you're not allowed to shoot. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. You gonna get me this time? You ready? You ready?
Yeah. See? They got me. I was expecting a gun.
There's no gun. This happens a lot. Unfortunately, good people are shot because they don't follow instructions. Now, we can sit here and jive back and forth on whether or not civilians should be able to operate under a stressful situation.
Wait, I got one more.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, you get out there. Okay, this is this.
How do you want me to stand?
Just out there facing me and take your gun. Okay, scoot back just a little bit that way so both cameras can get you. Okay, now, he is armed. Hopefully I'm behind some kind of cover and concealment. And there's a difference between cover and concealment. Concealment, people who've been in the military will shoot through, okay? Cover's different. Okay, I've got the drop on him. He's got a gun down by his side, okay? This is what I was trained. The minute that gun goes up, sir, put your weapon. Okay, you shoot, okay? The minute I walk up on a scene and he raises the gun, I'm not going to sit there and talk him out of it. Okay, even if he's not shooting, okay, come up and just raise your gun and don't shoot. I'm shooting. Okay, most law, especially federal law enforcement, you are trained. Somebody points a gun at you, you don't sit there and talk about the weather and put it down, because of what we just said. Even if I got the drop on him, 99.9% of the time, he can outshoot me if he's acting and I'm reacting. So that's what we were trained. Now keep that kind of training in mind, military training and law enforcement training in mind, when you're talking about a 17-year-old kid in a riot. Okay, so keep that kind of training in mind, because we want to juxtapose that together. Okay, so callers, now if you want to start calling in, you can. 606-376-5000 or 372-0002 long distance, or 606-376-5000. 606. I keep forgetting to pick my mic back up. Anyways, when I was in federal law enforcement, I worked in the LA area, and I was actually in 2 different shootings. Okay, and didn't get shot or anything, thank God. I was in another shooting and somebody else did get shot. One of the other agents got shot. And I'm telling you, you immediately revert to your training is what you do. So the fact that this kid, and let me talk about something else real quick. I went through and watched all the videos that I could find on this. And I watched the videos that the jury had. That's the evidence they had. And some of the comments below, you know, on YouTube and stuff and for the trial, some of the comments that were coming across is it was a red herring that the jury was not allowed to consider, okay? Think about this. Put yourself in the position of being a member of that jury. Things like, should that kid have been there in the first place? Should a 17-year-old minor be there in that position with a weapon, okay? You know, was it maybe not the best judgment for that business owner? Okay, we got a call. Truth or Politics, what's your comment or question?
I ain't about it again, but you still have video, but no audio. No audio at all. Can't. All I see is your mouth moving.
Okay, no audio at all, folks. Are you getting it? Okay, they're working on it. Thank you for calling in again.
Okay.
Okay, TV, we got no audio. Okay.
They're saying it's good to go.
He can't hear that, though, that they're saying it's good to go. Okay, so, you're a juror. That, you know, you got to decide on these questions. This is what the jury's question was put to them for these charges. Was it self-defense? That's the biggest question. Was he, at the time he pulled the trigger, was he there in self-defense? Okay. Was he there in self-defense? So questions like, was it the best judgment for that business owner to ask a 17-year-old to come and guard his business? Okay. Maybe not. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that was bad judgment. Let's say the parents showed bad judgment by letting a 17-year-old go into a riot to defend the business. Okay. Let's say all those arguments are correct. That's not what the jury had in front of them. Bad judgment, him being there at that location with a weapon, that was not a crime. It was not a crime for him to be standing at that location with that weapon. First off, he was committing and in law enforcement, one of the first questions you have to ask, every academy I went to, and in lawyer, when I went to law school, one of the first things you have to ask yourself, before you do a warrant, before you walk into a building, before you get somebody out of the car, you need to stop for a minute and ask yourself, am I here legally? How did I get here? Am I here legally? That's the question, because there's what's called the fruits of the poisonous tree doctrine. If you start from the get-go, your defendant or yourself, if you're in a position where you're in a location from the beginning doing something illegal, you're breaking the law, then you got problems. But if you don't, we got a caller. Truth or Politics, what's your comment or question?
Hey, Darlene, didn't that boy travel from Illinois to go up there?
No, he did not. That was another misnomer. He did not cross state lines. That was absolutely incorrect. I'm not sure which media outlet put that out, but that was it. That was corrected at the trial. Go ahead, Michael Mann's here.
It was the next day whenever he went to go...
Right, to turn himself into the cops.
Yeah,
right.
and he did not have a
Oh,
firearm.
okay. They misquoted herself on the news then.
Yeah, they did. They did a lot of misquoting about this case on the news before the trial. Anything?
Congratulations on 11 years. I watched you for 11 years.
Well, thank you, fine sir. Thank you for calling in. We appreciate it. Are you watching us on TV right now?
Yeah, I'm watching you on Channel 2.
Okay, and you can hear it just fine, right?
Oh, yeah, you got a good sound stuff down here.
Okay, thank you so much. And it must be just the caller's TV. Maybe he doesn't have his volume on correctly or something. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it, caller.
Okay, all right, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas to you, too.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, let me just say that. He was there legally. That was his town. Let me back up. He worked there. That car lot, that owner actually had 2 or 3 car lots. One car lot had already burned. And him and his buddy, which I think was a relative of the owner, they were buddies, young kids, had gone there the day before and tried to clean up graffiti and everything and all that. So the car lot owner asked him, can you come and protect my car lot, the one that has not burned yet? And so he did. So he was there legally. He was committing no crimes. He owned the gun legally. he was committing no crimes from the get-go. That's an important thing because, you know, everything else, you know, if you do something, you know, if you mess up as a cop from the beginning, it's called, everything else that follows gets thrown out. So he was there legally as a defendant. That's real important. There's a riot going on around him, all right?
It's a cultural issue. What we're dealing with right now in our society has nothing to do with, and this is just one particular case, but the cultural issue is we have got to a point to where our mainstream media makes perpetrators out to be victims. Let me get this as abundantly clear as possible. It does not matter whatsoever what any mainstream media news outlet, whatever you watch, tells you. If you are perpetrating violence to another human being, they have the right to defend themselves and escalate force as much as needed to defend themselves. I'm sorry, if you don't like that, don't do dumb stuff. You're going to be the screw around and find out crew.
Yeah, and he's right. Legally, that is absolutely correct. And what happened is you had people, and let me just say this, nobody believes in peaceful protests more than me. People who have followed this show for 11 years knows that we've actually organized protests, peaceful protests, and so has Ian, okay? Big time. So the minute you throw a brick, you break something, you burn something, you threaten somebody, you are no longer a protester, you're a criminal, period.
Perpetrator.
Right, perpetrator, criminal. You've committed a crime. You're a criminal, okay? And if someone is in fear of you hurting them or in fear of grievous bodily harm, they have a right to defend themselves, okay? So he was there legally. He had not crossed state lines to get there. He did not cross state lines until after he tried to turn himself into the police that night after this incident. I mean, immediately following the incident, and the police pepper sprayed him and told him to go home. That's what really happened. And so the next day, you know, a lot of people wouldn't have done that. He went to the other police station to turn himself in. That's when he crossed state lines. And we're talking like, you know, like Pine Knot and Oneida. You know, you're not talking he drove 3 hours.
Okay, well let's pose this question right here at home. If you're in Pine Knot and you drive to Walmart in Oneida to do grocery shopping, somebody holds you up at gunpoint and tries to rob you, are you allowed to shoot them?
Right.
The answer is yes.
Exactly. That's a good point. But he hadn't even crossed state lines when the riot happened and when the shooting happened. He had not. That was absolute wrong information that I don't know which media source, but you know, and then they all echo chambered it. Yeah, and they twisted that. So, but what really happened? I went and I tried really, really hard to put myself in a position of a juror. Actual evidence that was presented to them. Okay. And as a juror, you're not allowed to consider his parents. You got to consider the main question for these charges is this. If you were in that position, would you have pulled a gun and shot somebody to defend yourself? If you were in that position. Go back and watch those videos.
I'd have shot sooner.
Yeah, and make sure you're talking to the mic.
I'd have shot sooner.
And that was the reason we did this demonstration. All my training experience and his training, I'm sure, is the same way. Military training, police training, and I have both, is I would have shot sooner. He showed, as a 17-year-old kid, incredible restraint.
Well, the reality is he didn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
He wasn't there to do harm. He was there to stop harm. He was there to be a peacekeeper. And unfortunately, whether people like to admit it or not, and it seems like only during times of war do we recognize this, violence is necessary for peace at times. Period. End of story.
Yeah, it's not like, you know, these were just people walking by, whatever, merrily or whatever. You know, these people were armed that were threatening them. The video that really struck me was when he's not literally on the ground, he's knocked down, he's got the gun. This other guy, and these, by the way, he's 17 years old. These people are adults doing this.
Felons.
Yeah, later on we found out felons. And one of them who literally has a gun in this kid's face, and the kid literally puts his hand up and says something. You can't hear what he says on the video, but obviously he pauses for a minute before he shoots. This guy already has a gun in his face. He's already threatened to kill him. and he still pauses and have the wherewithal to try to not shoot this guy, and then shoots. I'm telling you, the minute the guy pointed, just like our demonstration, you point a gun at me, you're getting shot.
I mean, that particular individual even admitted that during the trial. He was asked, so you were not shot until you pointed a gun at Kyle with the intent to kill him. His answer was yes.
Yeah, and you know, the evidence that was presented at that trial, and I watched it, and I went back and rewatched the videos and everything, trying to prepare for this. I know a lot of prosecutors. I'm married to one, but putting that aside, you know, for 20 years I was in law enforcement. I don't know a good prosecutor that would have ever presented that case. Most prosecutors would have watched those videos and said, "Get out of my office." I'm not to the cop, you know, to somebody trying to bring this case. No, I'm not bringing this case to trial. Are you kidding? Are you crazy? Most prosecutors would not have brought that case to trial. So it begs the question, why did this one? And you know, and you know, I'm not a mind reader, but
They were probably under duress by the media. They were being pushed to do something that they probably didn't want to do. And honestly, I think that's why the charges were so outrageous. They knew they wouldn't stick.
Could be. Well, they had lesser included charges. The jury could have actually convicted him for lesser included charges. But even those charges, the question is, if every one of those charges, if you as a juror in the same position would have shot to defend yourself, okay, even in the lesser included charges of assault or what have you, then guess what? It's self-defense. And, you know, he doesn't go to jail. That's it. End of story. That's what the jurors had. And one of the things that I noticed in a lot of the comments is a lot of the red herring questions that the media, I think, ginned up, crossing state lines, da-da-da. Okay, let's say this. What if he did not cross state lines that night when the shooting happened? What if he did?
What does it matter?
It doesn't matter. Exactly. It doesn't matter. The question is, first off, when he's standing there with that firearm, was he breaking the law to stand there with that firearm? No. He's not breaking any laws. Okay, so he's there illegally. Now, somebody else comes up and threatens him. Was the threat enough to where he felt, I got to point my gun back at somebody? Well, what I saw, yeah. In fact, he, like I said, he showed incredible restraint. I thought, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, it just cracks me up. And like, people talk about the gentleman with the skateboard. I'm like, well, he didn't need to die. And I'm like, well, when you fire a round, unfortunately, that is a possibility that's going to happen. How about you don't try to whack somebody in the head with a skateboard? And if you don't think a skateboard or a small blunt object like that can hurt you, come on down. I will educate you.
Yeah, it can kill you. Okay, a blow to the head from a skateboard, a big heavy skateboard, can kill you. That is deadly force. And that's what the jury said. You know, that's deadly force. And even then, he showed restraint during that part of the video. The minute somebody raises a skateboard at me, to me, that's deadly force with intent to grievous bodily harm or kill me. I'm shooting. If I got a gun, you raise a hammer at me, you raise a shovel at me, you raise a skateboard, this guitar over here at me, that can cause grievous bodily harm, permanent damage, or can kill me, okay? And I got a gun, you just brought a guitar to a gunfight. I'm sorry, but you are allowed to defend yourself from that. If you don't want to get shot by somebody who's armed, don't bring a guitar, a skateboard, or whatever to a gunfight. That's just... Go ahead, Michael.
And they have been using those skateboards and other riots to maim and injure people.
Yeah, that was brought up in the trial too. That there have been other riots and stuff where they've used skateboards or what have you to injure people trying to defend the businesses. So, here's the other question: where were the cops? Here's another question. It has to be...
Cops, unfortunately, in situations like that are a lot like doctors. It's just as much as insurance has ruined the medical industry because Doctors are basically strung up and they're unable to do treatment protocols that they know will work, or they're educated to not know that they'll work, so that they go along with whatever the insurance will pay the most amount of money for. It's the same stuff with cops. You know, some of these riots, and I'm not going to say where because I don't want any of my friends to get in trouble, but I have friends that are cops that have been in some of these riots. Their bullets are taken away. They're not allowed to have live ammunition at some of these events. That's why they're standing there with batons and riot gear and stuff like that. They're not allowed to engage. They're literally told, you can't do anything because we're being crucified by the media anytime somebody and this again goes back to that cultural issue. Now, I had somebody that I know recently was accosted by 4 adult-sized teenagers.
Very large teenagers. And by the way, this guy was brown, okay? He was not white. Go ahead.
Yes. And he had his 8-year-old daughter in her vehicle. He was trying to back out of a restaurant, and these kids were running amok, you know, being typical moronic teenagers. And he asked them to move their vehicle because he couldn't get out. They started dropping F-bombs at him, started throwing racial slurs his direction and stuff. He's like, guys, I just want to leave. And after a while, they kind of bantered back and forth, and they started surrounding his car. And he got out, and there wound up being a fist fight. The manager from the restaurant witnessed the whole thing. I interviewed him later, and he completely corroborated my friend's story. After the altercation took place, he got in his car. He was able to move. They were able to move their vehicles. And as he was trying to leave, he had to drive around the restaurant because it was a one-way. The kids got back out of their vehicle, chased him around the restaurant, tried to stop him in the back. One of them actually jumped in front of his vehicle, and finally my friend pulled his gun out and put it on the dashboard. And all the kids went away. And I'm telling you, if he wasn't as good a person as he is, those 4 kids would be dead. Now, the sad part is my friend is being tried for assault over this because they were minors. Let me be abundantly clear. I don't care if it's an 80-year-old toothless grandma or a 15-year-old boy. If you are assaulting somebody and you're not completely willing to stand by your actions, then there's a strong possibility you might get killed. To those parents, if you happen to ever see this, I would have shot your kids. If it had been my son in the car, 4 kids my size, I wouldn't have checked their IDs. I'd have got out as soon as they wanted to have a go, and as soon as they started beating on me, I'd have shot all 4 of them, and you wouldn't have had to worry about arresting me for assault. You'd have been attending your children's funerals. You need to work on being better freaking parents.
Yeah, these kids, by the way, these were big kids. These did not look like minors. These were kids in the sports. They, very large kids. And he had a little 8-year-old kid in his car, and they're threatening to beat him up, and we're going to whoop your, and racial slurs and everything else. By the way, back up. Before they started harassing him, they were harassing another guy too, a black guy in the parking lot. So there were multiple witnesses that saw this. Yet, here in Kentucky, the brown guys that got charged, not the good old boy, homeboys, they didn't get charged. So this can work both ways. And that brings up a point. What if this kid, instead of being a white kid, what if this kid was black? Okay, bring up the scenario about the KKK that you were talking about earlier.
I keep hearing people say, well, he shouldn't have been there. He shouldn't have been there. He should have done, but one, that's completely irrelevant. But, all kinds of groups have meetings in public places all the time. So if, let's say, a 17-year-old black boy, young man, whatever you want to call him, goes to a KKK rally that's being held at a public park, if he's assaulted, does he have the right to defend himself? The answer is yes. He 100% has the right to defend himself. It doesn't matter that it was really stupid for him to go to a KKK rally. It doesn't matter that he probably shouldn't have been there. He undoubtedly has the right to defend himself.
Yeah, we don't put, in a shooting situation like this, you don't put bad judgment on trial. And, you can sit and argue all day long. Was the parental control bad to let a 17-year-old be there? Was the ownership's judgment bad to let him be there? I would, if my 17-year-old, if he was 17-year-old, he came home and said, I'm going to go defend my friend's business, give me my gun, I'd say, not only no, but hell no, you're not going anywhere to do that, okay? But The jury did not get to consider that because he was breaking no laws by being there. Okay, here's this question to juxtapose against that. The people that were there threatening him before he shot, the people there that were throwing bricks, burning things down, what about, where's the question of what were they doing there? Okay, because the people that he shot were not the peaceful protesters. You know, one of them had been threatening him and other people. I mean, this guy had a gun. He was
threatening Kyle earlier today. He told him if he was there past dark, he was going to kill him.
Right, but he had been threatening other people there too. So he was probably maybe a mental case or something. I don't know what his deal was, but you know,
good riddance.
You know, what was he doing? So go ahead, Michael.
Kyle had put out a fire. That guy had set fire in a dumpster, and
Yeah, he was trying to push it into a gas pump at that point, and he stopped that, and that was when they first started assaulting him.
Yeah, in case you didn't hear him, earlier that day, he had a run-in with this guy, the one guy, the one with the gun and the nut. Okay, because I think you're nuts if you do something like this. Okay, but he had set fire to just a big giant gas can, I think it was, and shoved it towards a gas tank.
I thought it was a dumpster.
No, it was one of those commercial dumpsters that has rolls on the bottom of it. I think what is it, 8 yard? Is what it looked like to me.
And was rolling that towards a gas thing, right? Correct? Okay. And then Kyle stopped that, and that earlier that day he threatened to kill Kyle right there. I'm going to kill you. And Kyle showed restraint, so he didn't shoot him then. And you know, that could have caused a lot of people harm. That could have, you know, that could have essentially been like a bomb situation. But you know, he didn't overreact. So again, you guys want to call in? It's 376-5000, 376-5000. I want you to tell your story while we're waiting on a call about.
There's several witnesses to this story, but sometimes the enemy, when you're overseas, they do dumb stuff, like they'll send people up that are not armed or don't look like they would be combatants or older. Specifically, this time there was a gentleman that was trying to probe a security patrol. And what I mean by probing is he's just walking closer, ignoring commands to stop. That's just a terminology that's commonly used in the military. And Sergeant B ordered him to stop, and he didn't. So one of the privates that was there was asked to fire a round by his feet after, I think it was the third time he was asked to be stopped, and he kind of put his hands up. They had the interpreter come up and start hollering at him, and I can't remember if it was Dari or Pashtu, to stop again, and he just kept putting his hands up, and he got past what we would consider a danger zone. They put 3 rounds in and called it a day. He was unarmed, but they don't do that.
Right, because what could he have had on his back that they couldn't see? Yeah, he could have had explosive devices on his back, hidden under his shirt. You don't know in that situation. So, look at that situation. As far as the military knew and what they knew, the guy didn't have a gun.
A threat is a threat.
Yeah. And as opposed to Kyle having a gun pointed in his face, and he still paused and gave the guy a chance, to stop. It was a quick pause, but if you watch that video, you can tell that's what he's doing. You can't hear what he's saying, but he's doing that. Again, as someone who has military training and law enforcement training, and he's got a ton of military training, and I'm telling you, in my humble opinion, I think that this young man at 17 years old showed incredible restraint.
In my humble opinion, this should have happened a long time ago. We have grown so complacent in our society that so many, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without sounding like a complete butthead. There are so many wannabe alpha males out here running around now, whether it's bodybuilding, everywhere you look at on Facebook, mixed martial arts, and everything in between. And at the end of the day, when it comes to public commitment, cowards. 99.9% of us are complete cowards. I had an issue at a wrestling meet on this Sunday. I was the only person who stood up over what was going on, which was quite literally child abuse. All these other people are coming up to me afterwards. Man, Awesome. Well, that was disgusting. We can't believe this dude was acting like that. Could have hurt that kid, all this other crap. And I'm like, where the frig were you? Why didn't you say something? If you saw it, why didn't you say something? As a matter of fact, I think Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. I think if more criminals, more perpetrators that have been burning down America for the last almost two freaking years now over, honestly, criminals. Sorry, George Floyd, the only reason anybody cared that he got killed was because it was a cop that did it. Sorry, it's the truth. You don't like it? Call in, we can debate about it. But that's the God's honest truth. The guy was a career criminal, violent career criminal, perpetual drug-using dirtbag. I have no sympathy for him whatsoever. If it would have been just a regular bystander or somebody that he was breaking into that blew his brains out or killed somebody else in some other fashion had killed him, no one would have batted an eye. It wouldn't have even made the paper.
Or 40 minutes earlier, when he walked into a grocery store, a little mini mart, a stop and rob, I call them stop and robs, and no, I mean, that's what he was doing. He bullied and was trying to rob. This is like 40 minutes before this happened. He's on video and everything. He was harassing and trying to rob the video. Now, had that store clerk pulled a gun and just shot him right there, he would have never made it to the cops. So, I mean, that's a good point. So, I just believe me, we support law enforcement. I posted something like a couple years ago, maybe a year or so ago, and it says this. I didn't write this, but I believe this. I support cops that don't break the law. I support protesters, people that don't break the law. Mm-hmm. The minute you break the law, you're not a cop anymore, you're a criminal, and you're not a protester anymore. You're a criminal, period. And if you're...
Let's just call it what it is. There's no such thing as a perpetrator that burns down Joe Blow's pawn shop. As a protester. There's no such thing as a protester that loots Target. These are opportunistic dirtbags that are taking advantage of somebody else's pain. So why are people out here protesting in the first place? Because something terrible has happened. In some capacity, somebody believes that something terrible has happened. How big of a piece of garbage do you have to be to use somebody else's pain to further your own gain? That's terrible. Matter of fact, for those people, Thanos had it right. Deuces. Y'all can go kick rocks too.
Well, here's the thing, like the LA riots. I was one of the 300 federal agents that they sent in the LA riots. And the point that he made earlier was, when we got there, they had us sit in the park. We had the National Guard show up. Again, no bullets. They did not have any bullets. We literally sat there for almost 2 days before anybody was sent into the riots.
Here's 93, right?
Yeah, the LA riots. This is for younger people. The LA was really big riots. LA burned, okay? And part of that was the police chief was a absolute criminal piece of garbage, and people, I'm not justifying rioting, but it was bad. LAPD back then in the 90s was a criminal organization. They were bad, and they were abusing their authority, and that police chief Gates was a piece of garbage. And one of the things he said is, let LA burn, and then they'll not be so bad about the cops, okay? So for 2 days, LA burned. Here's what I saw. I was there. I've got the photographs to prove it, okay? I saw Korean businessmen up on the rooftop of their buildings defending their businesses. And they're not defending just their lives. They're defending their businesses armed, okay? And you had that all over LA. You had people armed to the teeth, defending their businesses. And the ones that were on the rooftops with their weapons defending their businesses, guess what? They didn't get looted either. Did these people have a right to defend their businesses? Well, yeah, because if somebody's breaking into your business and they're going to set it on fire, you're on the roof. You're in fear of grievous bodily harm. These are just examples of what juries have to face, what cops have to face.
And I feel terrible for cops, honestly. Somerset Martial Arts is the business my wife and I own up in, obviously, Somerset. And we allow law enforcement officers to train for free for up to 2 years. And I've actually had an attorney up there kind of give me crap about that. And I'll be honest with you, it works both directions. So we can't have the liberal media screaming, defund the police, and then at the same time be demanding that they have better trained cops. Doesn't work that way.
Right.
Further, I actually did some research on this from the 4 biggest crime cities in the U.S. Houston, Chicago, L.A., and I can't remember what the 4th one was off the top of my head because I made this post and I shared all the links about 7-8 months ago, and I tagged you in it. This is not an exaggeration.
Detroit.
There you go. 77% of all calls that require law enforcement intervention come from impoverished neighborhoods. So let's retract that back in our heads for a second. So the same people, the criminal element, are impoverished neighborhoods, our slums, our whatever you want to call it, our hoods. The same neighborhoods that are demanding to defund the cops are where 79% of the phone calls begging for law enforcement help come from. Does that make any sense whatsoever? We're not using logic to attack this argument. We're using emotion, and emotion is always 100% illogical. So what do? We train cops for free for up to 2 years or until they're in their blue belt. Some people get a little bit faster in martial arts or a higher level of athleticism than others. But the reality is, out of shape, overweight cops are unconfident. Unconfident people, when presented with a possible physical challenge or an altercation, are going to reach for their tools faster. I have yet to see the introduction of a weapon into an altercation result in anything positive for either the law enforcement officer or the perpetrator, if you want to call them that at this point. So with that being said, we want strong cops. We want cops that are well-versed in hand-to-hand combat, that know how to use their tools effectively, that have the mental and physical capability to go, I'm okay right now. I'm safe. I don't need to reach for my tools. Now, the flip side of that coin is because this same attorney came back with, well, you're just teaching them how to hurt people.
He's a defense attorney too, by the way.
Well, you're just trying to teach people how to hurt people worse. Okay, well, 1, you've been in jiu-jitsu for 5 minutes, dude. What do you got, 1 stripe on your white belt? 2, I've never seen a competent jiu-jitsu practitioner injure somebody without it being intentional. So now we're taking away law enforcement's ability to say, well, I didn't know that was going to hurt him. No, that's incorrect. You are a very well-trained blue belt in jiu-jitsu. Once you have that physical confidence and that capability, you don't get the ability to say, well, I didn't know anymore. So that covers you from both sides of the spectrum. That covers the cop so that they have the ability to go, no, I don't need this tool right now because I can handle this situation. I can de-escalate it because I have physical and mental confidence. The reversal of that, when they do have physical and mental confidence, they don't have the ability to go, oops, anymore.
Here's another thing too, body cameras. I want you to think about this. If you're a juror and you had to decide Kyle Rittenhouse's fate, what if there was no video? What saved Kyle Rittenhouse and proved to me that if I was a juror, I would have let him off is video. This is why all cops, in my humble opinion, need to be wearing body cameras. Good, honest cops, professional cops, love body cameras. I know cops. I was a cop for a long time. My brother was a cop, okay? I got relatives that are cops. I'm telling you, good, professional, honest cops will tell you a body camera will save your job. Because cops out on the street, you get accused of a lot of stuff. People get mad, you pull over somebody and they ain't liking how you are. They run in and make a false accusation, okay? That happens a lot. A body camera of that situation, of somebody being pulled over or somebody being arrested or, a search warrant in the house. Well, they took this stuff. No, we didn't. Here, we videoed this whole house before we went in, As soon as we went in, we videoed it before and we videoed it after. Videotape for good law enforcement saves their jobs from false accusations. So I'm a big proponent of body cameras or, car cameras. I'm telling you, it can save. And if you're defunding the police, you can't do that. So I agree with him. Defunding the police was one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. When I first heard that, I'm like, no, you must be. No, nobody's calling for defunding the police. No, they need funding and more training is what they need. These situations where people are reaching for tasers and they're pulling their gun instead of a taser in a situation where you will react for your training. If you are
That person should have never been a cop.
well, you will react to what your training tells you to do, okay? 100%. If you are well trained, and you are trained over and over and over and over again, how to handle situations, shoot, don't shoot situations, then in a high intense situation, your training will kick in. I know, I've been there, okay? And when you have a lack of training, or very little training, and you have a taser and a gun, that's every single time we've had those situations where somebody meant to pull the taser, or they're saying they meant to pull a taser and they pull a gun and shot, you will see a lack of training with that taser. 100% of the time, I guarantee it. You will see a lack of training, okay? Well, if you defund the police, you can't accurately train them, okay? And I just think that too many times we do not, in the United States, you know, there's some good law enforcement training facilities out there. Don't get me wrong. There's some real good ones. I've been through some real good ones, okay? And there's some bad ones, and then there's some that just, do basics, and they throw them on the street and basically expect them to do OJT, and there is no OJT. You know, I just...
FTO training. Or it's FTO training. It's usually it's a law enforcement officer nearing the end of their, well, sometimes it's nearing the end of their career, getting ready to either A, get promoted, or B, retire as a beat cop. The field training officer takes daytime shifts generally, and they take the new recruits shortly after they graduate the academy, and they spend a pretty good significant amount of time training them on how to be an actual cop out in the field, because at the end of the day, you can spend 6-9 months in an academy, and that just does not supplement the real thing. It doesn't. But with that being said, instead of defund the police, so if you live in an area or a neighborhood or a county or a city where you're unhappy with the way law enforcement conducts themselves, where you're unhappy with the way arrests are brought about, if you're unhappy with the way warrants are, anything that may be involved in a law enforcement officer's training, instead of screaming at the cop, who has absolutely no control over his paycheck, his hours, what shift he works, when he gets to go home, what he gets to eat, what he gets to wear. It's like being very similar to being in the military. You have no decision, no choices. Why aren't you going to your city hall? When I had an issue with the school board, guess what? I went to the school board meeting. Now I'm running for school board. Why aren't our people stepping up? Everybody seems to just be sitting around waiting for some freaking hero to come in and save everybody. Let's just break this out. We're 2-time World War back-to-back champs. There is no one coming to save us. The only person who can save you, your community, your people, your friends, your family is you. Call your local congressman. Call your city officials. Call your councilmen.
Good point. Truth or politics, what's your comment or question?
So I just have a question, actually, at the Rittenhouse, the ones he shot in self-defense, which it was definitely self-defense. Did they have any kind of criminal record? I never did hear if they had criminal record.
Yes.
All
yes.
4 of them were felons.
All 4 of them had criminal records.
Well, see, the laws were on the books. If all laws were enforced and they're on the books, so many of these problems, if they was enforced, this stuff wouldn't be going on. They shouldn't have been out there on the street to begin with.
I completely agree with you. That's the same concept of like trying to take away the Second Amendment and not allow people to have guns. Well, congratulations. Kyle wouldn't have had a gun. The criminal would have had a gun. Kyle would have died.
Right.
I just had a question. I didn't know if they had criminal records or not.
They did.
I thought they did.
And some of them had more extensive criminal records than other ones, but they did. They had criminal records.
Well, I ain't gonna say anything else.
All right. Well, thank you,
All
caller.
right, thank you.
Okay, folks, you got like 6 or 7 more minutes. 376-5000 or 372-0002 to call in. Go ahead, Michael Mann.
Well, one of the things that they're doing is whitewashing a lot of these incidents. For example, some of the groups that's doing these burnings and riotings, I've called terrorists. And then I've been challenged on it, and they said, no, they're fighting for a cause. Well, you can go to any terrorist that you want to and ask them, they'll tell you their cause.
Okay, but I have a retort to that, because I had
Wait, repeat what he said to make sure, because can't hear him here.
he was referring to these people looting and burning down buildings and stuff, or private businesses, Targets, Joe Blow's pawn shop as terrorists. He's 100% right. They're domestic terrorists. Somebody made that comment to me actually once, Michael, because I kind of used the same language or same verbiage, and I was like, well, you know what? They are. So if your issue is criminally against City Hall and you are dead set like now, because I'll be the first one to admit, when law and order fails, when the system fails, the only thing left is violence. If people don't like that, then I'm sorry, but that what else do you got? You don't have anything else. But they're not burning down the police department. They're not going to their city councilman's front yard and picketing. They're not going to their mayor's house and going, you need to do something about this now or we're coming through your front door. They're not going to Washington, D.C., armed to the teeth, standing on the Capitol Hill steps going, you idiots have screwed our country up for the last 50 years. We've had enough. Fix it now or you all are out. They're not doing that. They're burning down private businesses. They're burning down people's livelihoods. They're trashing, again, Joe Blow's pawn shop, looting Target. That does nothing but turn the rest of our society and public against those individuals. They are 100% domestic terrorists.
Yeah, and here's the other thing, too. You know, if you want to do something, if you want to change this country, change Capitol Hill. Every election cycle at the federal level and even at the state level, 93% or more get reelected, okay? That's on the voters. You know, right now, we have a chance at term limits. Please, folks, go to termlimits.com. Go to that website. There's a petition there. Look for your state. You find your state. You hit Kentucky or where we have people from all over the United States watching this show. Friends in California, we got people from other countries watching this. Hello, Rosie and Buenos Aires. But anyways, go to your state, sign the petition. We need term limits. We've already got it passed. All we need, I think, is 24 or 26 states? It's 24. 24 states. Correct me if I'm wrong. Somebody look it up. Google it. It's either 24 or 26 states. We get this passed in 24 or 26 states, whichever it is. I got a brain fart here.
It's probably 26.
It's 26, yeah. Then, that's it. Nobody else has a say-so in it. We get term limits. Nobody on Capitol Hill should be up there more than the President of the United States. These people up there, you know, the Mitch McConnells, the Nancy Pelosi's that are up there 30, 40 years, they have screwed this country up, and, you know, we need to get rid of them. The way to do that is term limits. Go to termlimits.com, tell everybody about it, sign these petitions. We've already got several states have already got it on the ballot. Several states have already passed it. We're trying to get it on the ballot right here in Kentucky. Tennessee's there. They're ahead of us. Kentucky. Tennessee's beating us on termlimits.com, so let's pick it up. I think Ohio's ahead of us too, so we need to do that. And we got 3 minutes, 2 minutes or 3 minutes? 3 minutes left.
I saw a post on Facebook, and not to discredit the elderly by any means, but it was very accurate. You know, a lot of companies, small businesses, big businesses, don't want to hire people that are in their 60s and 70s and 80s because generally, as a rule of thumb, we start considering that as the age of cognitive decline and not being really with it that much. And yet they're quite literally exclusively running the most powerful country in the world.
Yeah, we got a caller here. Teresa Politics, what's your comment or question? You got about a minute left.
Darlene, you say they're going to have that on the vote this time, the term limit?
Well, we're trying to get it on the ballot in Kentucky. Go online on your phone or whatever. Google termlimits.com. Termlimits.com. One of the guys running this organization, termlimits.com, is going to be on our show in January, and we'll promo that. But you just go to everybody all over the United States. Go to termlimits.com. They have a petition on your state. You'll see the little headings, and pick your state, Kentucky or Tennessee.
Yeah, I know what you're saying about it.
And then,
but I hope they got it on the ballot, because you're right. Nancy Pelosi, Mitch McConnell, they got to go.
Yeah, all of them got to go. Anybody up there? Yeah. Anybody, because they're just destroying this country, I think.
I personally absolutely refuse to vote for any sitting politician. That's just my personal opinion. I've done that for the last 2 election cycles.
Yeah, anything.
I don't blame you. I didn't vote for Mitch. None of them this time.
All right, caller, but tell everybody you know. Termlimits.com.
Sure will. I'm going to get it out there.
All right, thank
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we are out of time. Folks, we want to thank our guest, Ian Lawler. We want to thank Michael Mann behind the scenes back there for all things technical. We want to thank Steve Hall for getting us on TV. We want
And
to thank
one last time, click that share button at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, good point. We want to thank everybody for following us for 11 years, folks, for sticking with us. We are diligently trying to get done our big exclusive news story on Lake Cumberland. We hope to get that out soon. Michael Mann's working on it diligently with us. And we will see you next time. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We will see you next year. See you next year on Truth or Politics. Thanks. Bye.